Corporal Deho Kim stood at attention, near the eastern entrance of the Galactic Council Hall. His dark eyes scanned the massive chamber with practiced care. Above him the domed ceiling showed the stars of 1,000 worlds. Around him, beings from across the galaxy filled the seats in careful arrangement by species and status. Deho had been standing guard for 3 hours. His legs did not hurt, his back did not ache. He had trained his body to stand still for much longer than this. Beside him, Private Hana Park maintained the same perfect posture. They were 2 of only 6 human guards in the entire hall. The other guards belonged to different species, insectoid warriors with 4 arms, massive creatures covered in thick shells, floating beings that glowed with soft light. The council meeting was boring as always. Ambassador Kyong-Su from Earth was speaking about trade routes. His voice was calm and diplomatic. Dezhou did not listen to the words. That was not his job. His job was to watch, to notice, to be ready. Near the center of the hall, Veeler commanded the security forces. The insectoid chief had served in this position for 12 years. His mandibles clicked with satisfaction as he observed the peaceful session. Everything was normal. Everything was safe. Deho noticed the diplomatic aide first. Something was wrong with how the rock species member moved. The aide's robes were too bulky. His steps were too careful. Dezhou's hand moved slowly to his weapon, not drawing it, just touching it. He caught Hana's eye. She had seen it too. Then everything happened at once. The aide threw off his robes. Beneath them was armor and weapons. He was not alone. 5 more false aides revealed themselves across the chamber. Energy weapons fired. The bright beams cut through the air where Counselor Moore had been sitting, the old aquatic being dropped from his floating chair just in time. The chamber exploded into chaos. Counselors screamed in 100 different languages. Guards shouted. More weapons fired. Dezhou ran toward the shooting, not away from it, toward it. His mind was clear and cold. His training took over. He saw Hana moving on the other side, her weapon already firing at the nearest attacker. The other guards, the non-human ones, were running in the opposite direction. Some dropped their weapons, some hid behind pillars, some simply froze in place. Veeler's voice shrieked over the communication system, "Retreat to safe positions, protect yourselves." But they did not retreat. He could see 3 counselors trapped near the western wall. The attackers were moving toward them. If someone did not stop them, those counselors would die. He dropped to one knee and fired. His first shot hit an attacker's weapon, destroying it. His second shot hit the attacker's leg. The being fell. Deho was already moving again, using the council seats as cover, always advancing, never backing up. Hana had reached the counselors on the eastern side. She stood in front of them, her small body between them and the attackers. Energy blasts hit the floor near her feet. She did not move. She fired back with careful, precise shots. Dezhou's mind flashed back for just a moment. He remembered his brother Young, remembered the raiders who had attacked their colony ship when they were children. Young had pushed him into a closet and held the door shut from outside. Deho had survived. His brother had not. He was 7 years old when he learned that some people run toward danger so others can run away from it. He shook the memory away and focused. An attacker was aiming at Ambassador Kyle. Su Dejo threw himself forward and tackled the counselor to the ground. The energy blast went over their heads. Dejo rolled, came up on one knee, and put 2 shots into the attacker's chest. "Stay down," he shouted at the ambassador. Then he was moving again. The other 4 human guards in the hall had formed a defensive ring around the largest group of counselors. They stood back to back, weapons firing outward. One of them was bleeding from a shoulder wound, but still fighting. Where were the other guards? Dejo could see them now. The insect warriors had sealed themselves inside a security booth. The massive shelled creatures had retreated to the armored doors and were trying to force them open. The floating lights had simply disappeared, probably through the ventilation system. Only the humans remained. Only the humans stood between the counselors and death. Veeler's voice came again over the radio. "Human guards, retreat. You cannot win. There are too many." Dejo ignored him. He could count. There had been 6 attackers. He had taken down 1. Hana had taken down 1. The other humans had taken down 2 more. That left 2 attackers. They were dangerous. Yes, they were desperate now. Yes, and there were 6 humans. Hana's voice came calm over the radio. "Dejo, box pattern confirmed." He replied. "They had trained for this. Move in coordinated patterns. Never give the enemy a clear shot. Always protect the civilians." The humans moved like parts of a machine. They had practiced together for months. They knew each other's movements. When one advanced, another provided cover. When one reloaded, another stepped into their line of fire. The attackers were skilled. They were well-armed, but they were not coordinated. They fought as individuals, each trying to complete their own objective. The humans fought as one. 12 minutes after the attack began, Dejo put the final attacker down with a shot to the weapon arm, followed by a stun blast. The attacker collapsed. The hall was silent except for the sounds of crying and moaning from the wounded. Dejo did not relax. He moved through the hall, checking every shadow, every corner. Hana did the same from the other direction. The other 4 humans maintained their protective positions around the counselors. 35 minutes later, reinforcements finally arrived. Heavy security forces poured into the hall. Medics rushed to the wounded. Officer began securing the area. Veeler emerged from the security booth. His compound eyes looked at the scene. 6 human guards standing among the unconscious attackers. Counselors huddled together, frightened but alive, and 15 non-human guards who had fled or hidden. Dejo finally allowed himself to breathe normally. He checked his weapon, noted his ammunition count, and returned to his post by the eastern entrance. His shift was not over yet. Hana joined him. She had a cut on her cheek. Her uniform was scorched in 3 places. She stood at attention beside him, as if nothing had happened. "Good work," Dejo said quietly. "You too," she replied. They did not speak again. They did not need to. They had done their job. Counselors were safe. That was all that mattered. In the center of the hall, Counselor Moore was being helped to his floating chair by medics. The old being looked across the chamber at the 2 human guards standing calm and ready at their posts. His large eyes were thoughtful and sad. "Remarkable," he whispered to himself. "Absolutely remarkable." The investigation would begin in the morning. Questions would be Asked, reports would be written, but for now the hall was secure and the humans stood guard. The inquiry chamber was smaller than the main council hall, but no less impressive. Representatives from 47 species sat in curved rows, all facing the witness platform. At the center sat Grand Counselor Thex, a being of living silicon whose body gleamed like polished stone under the lights. Dijo sat in the witness waiting area. His dress uniform was perfect. Every metal was polished. Every crease was sharp. Beside him, Captain Jun Lee reviewed notes on a data pad. The captain was 40 years old and had served in 3 wars. His face showed no emotion as he prepared for the testimony. On the other side of the chamber, Veeler stood with his legal advisors, the insectoids. Antennae twitched with agitation. He had already testified for 2 hours, defending his guards' actions during the attack. The chamber doors opened. A human woman entered, carrying a simple briefcase. Dr. Yuna Choi was small and wore plain academic robes. She did not look impressive, but when she walked to the witness platform, every being in the room paid attention. She was known across the galaxy as the leading expert in xenopsychology. Grand Counselor Tex's voice rumbled like stones grinding together. Dr. Choi, you have reviewed the security recordings of the attack. I have, Yuna replied. Her voice was clear and confident. Please share your analysis with the council. Yuna touched her data pad. The large screens around the chamber came to life. They showed the attack from multiple angles. The council members watched in silence as the events unfolded again. Please observe the guards' reactions at time stamp 0 to 4. Yuna said, the attack begins here. Screens showed the moment the first attacker revealed his weapons. Every guard in the hall reacted, but they did not all react the same way. Insectoid guards immediately moved away from the threat. Yuna continued. Their species evolved on a world with many predators. Their survival instinct is to flee when outnumbered. This is perfectly rational behavior. She changed the image. The Krello guards moved to defensive positions but did not engage. Their species calculates threat levels instinctively. When the odds are unfavorable, they wait for better conditions. This is also rational. Another image, the Vex guards simply disappeared. Their species is small and fragile. Running and hiding has allowed them to survive for millions of years. Again, perfectly rational. Veeler's mandibles clicked. You see, my guards acted according to their nature. They preserved themselves to fight. Another day. Yuna nodded. Yes, they acted rationally. She paused. Now observe the human guards at the same time stamp. The screen focused on Deja and Hana the moment the attack began. They both ran toward the danger, not away toward. This behavior appears irrational. Yuna said 6 humans against 6 heavily armed attackers. The logical response would be to retreat, to call for backup, to wait for better odds. But the humans did not retreat. She pulled up medical scans. I have studied human neurology for 20 years. The human brain has the same fear response as other species. When they see danger, their bodies flood with stress chemicals. Their hearts beat faster. Their muscles prepare to run. They are afraid just like any other species. Then why do they not run? Asked a counselor from the back. Because humans have developed something unique, Yuna explained. They have the ability to override their survival instinct with conscious choice. We call it willpower or duty or honor. Humans give it many names, but the result is the same. They can look at certain death and choose to move forward. Anyway, she brought up more data. Humans evolved as persistent hunters on their home world. They did not have claws or venom or armor. They had endurance. They would chase prey for days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. This required the ability to keep going when their bodies screamed at them to stop. Screens showed human evolutionary history. Images of early humans running across vast plains, chasing animals much larger and faster than themselves, never stopping, never giving up. Over millions of years, this created a unique psychology. Yuna continued, humans developed the concept of the oath, the promise, the duty. Once a human says they will do something, breaking that promise is more painful to them than physical injury. It is more terrifying than death. Veeler stood, this is madness. No rational being values abstract concepts over their own life. You are correct, Yuna said calmly. It is not rational, but it is reliable. She displayed the final statistics. 12 of 15 non-human guards abandoned their posts. 3 remained but did not engage. 0 casualties among guards who fled, but also 0 counselors saved by those guards. Meanwhile, 6 human guards remained. 6 human guards engaged. 2 human guards were injured, but 0 counselors died. The chamber was silent. Grand Counselor Thex leaned forward. Are you saying humans are superior warriors? No, Yuna replied firmly. In a straight fight, many species are stronger than humans, faster, better armed naturally. You can trust them to stay when others would run. You can trust them to keep a promise even when breaking it would be safer. She looked around the chamber. Every species here has warriors, brave ones, skilled ones, but only humans have a culture where keeping your post is valued more than your own survival. Only humans take an oath and consider it unbreakable. Captain Jun was called to testify next. He walked to the platform with the confident stride of a career soldier. When asked about human training methods, he was direct. We train our guards for 300 days before they stand a post, he said. Other species train for 60 to 90 days. We train longer, not because we are teaching complicated techniques. We train longer because we are teaching them to ignore their fear. How do you teach such a thing? Thex asked. Repetition, Jun replied. We put them in danger again and again. Simulated at first, then real. We teach them that fear is just a feeling. It cannot stop you unless you let it. We teach them that their duty is not to survive. Their duty is to protect. Survival is secondary. A counselor from the Aquatic Alliance spoke up. This seems cruel to train your people to accept death. We do not train them to accept death, Jun corrected. We train them to accept risk. There is a difference. We teach them to calculate what is worth dying for, and we teach them that some things are worth it. Dejo was called last. He stood on the platform and felt thousands of eyes on him. Beings of every shape and size studied him like he was a strange creature in a zoo. Corporal Kim Beck said, why did you run toward the attackers instead of away? Deho thought about the question. He could have given a simple answer, but these beings needed to understand. I made a promise, he said. When I became a guard, I swore an oath. I promised to protect the counselors with my life if necessary. When the attack started, I had two choices: keep my promise or break it. I kept it, even though you might have died. Yes. Why? Dejo met the Grand Counselor's gaze. Because if I break my promise when things get hard, then my promise means nothing, and if my promises mean nothing, then I am nothing. I would rather die keeping my word than live knowing I broke it. The chamber was absolutely silent. Veeler's voice broke the quiet. This proves my point. The human is defective. He values abstract honor over rational survival. Counselor Moore, the elderly aquatic being who had nearly died in the attack, spoke for the first time. His voice was soft but clear. Defective, he repeated slowly. Or dependable, he looked at Veeler. Guards are alive because they ran. My life is intact because the humans stayed. Which is more valuable to me? No one answered. Grand Counselor Thex shifted his massive form. This inquiry will continue. We will conduct practical tests. We must see if this behavior is consistent or merely fortunate. The council will reconvene in 1 week. The session ended as Dejo left the chamber. He passed Veeler in the corridor. The insectoid's compound eyes studied him. You are either very brave or very stupid, Veeler said. Dejo thought about it. Maybe both, he replied. Then he walked away to prepare for whatever tests they would face next. The testing facility was built on the lower levels of Apex Prime Station. It was designed to simulate every type of emergency a guard might face: fire, structural collapse, chemical leaks, armed attackers. M1, the council had spared no expense in making it realistic. Sergeant Borashin stood in the observation room with the council representatives. Her short hair was pulled back tight, her uniform displayed the marks of 20 years of service. She watched the screens that showed the testing floor below. The first test will begin in 5 minutes, announced one of the technicians on the testing floor. 2 teams prepared. The human team consisted of 4 guards, including young Taeyang. He was only 20 years old. Fresh from training, this was his first real assignment. He checked his equipment 3 times, his hands shaking slightly. The competing team was Shiv warriors. The Shiv were a reptilian species known across the galaxy for their military tradition. They had fought wars for 10,000 years. Their scales were thick as armor. Their reflexes were 3 times faster than human reflexes. They moved with the confidence of apex predators. The test scenario was simple. A building was on fire. Civilian mannequins were placed inside at various locations. The teams had to rescue as many civilians as possible. They would be scored on speed, efficiency, and number of rescues. Grand Counselor Thex's voice boomed through the speakers. Teams prepare. The test begins now. Alarms blared. Smoke began pouring from the building. Flames appeared in the windows. The simulation was incredibly realistic. Heat was real. The smoke was real. Only the civilians were fake. The Jivy team moved first. They were fast, incredibly fast. They had tactical sensors that showed them the layout through the smoke. They moved in a coordinated pattern, each warrior taking a designated section. Within 2 minutes, they had retrieved 6 civilians, but then their sensors detected a structural weakness. The floor in the eastern section was about to collapse. The Shiv team leader calculated the risk and made a decision. They would not enter that section. Too dangerous. 3 civilians remained in that area. But the risk was not acceptable. The human team had moved more slowly at first. They did not have the GI sensors. They had to feel their way through the smoke using thermal imaging, goggles and hand signals. Taeyang was paired with a veteran guard named Gil Su. They had retrieved 4 civilians. When they heard the warning about the eastern section, Jilu checked his scanner. The floor could collapse any moment. Going in there was a very bad idea. There are still people inside, Taeyang said. Jilu looked at the young guard, then he nodded. Stay close to the walls, watch your footing. We go in fast, and we come out fast. They entered the unstable section. The floor groaned under their weight. Smoke was thicker. Here, visibility was almost zero. Taeyang and LT Lunk and GT's heart pounded so hard he could hear it over the alarms. He found the first mannequin near a collapsed desk. He grabbed it and started back. The floor cracked beneath him. He lunged forward, rolling to distribute his weight. The section he had just been standing on fell away into darkness. Below, Taeyang, Gil and LT Unk and GT's voice came through the radio. I'm okay. There are 2 more. He should have left. Every instinct told him to get out, but he had seen the mannequins. They were placed to look like a parent and child huddled together. Just mannequins, just plastic and electronics, but they looked real. He crawled across the weakening floor, grabbed both mannequins, started back. The floor gave way completely. Taeyang fell, but Gil Su and LT Unk and GT's hand caught his arm. The older guard pulled with all his strength. They both made it to solid ground just as the entire eastern section collapsed in a roar of flames and debris. Taeyang and LT Unk and GT's uniform was smoking. He had burns on his arms, but he had both mannequins. Are you hurt? Gil Su demanded. I'm fine. Did we get them all? Yes. Now get to the medical station. There might be more. I should check the. That's an order, kid. Get to medical. The test ended. The Zeev team had performed flawlessly by every rational measure. Fast, efficient rescues with 0 injuries. The humans had been slower. Taeyang was injured. They had only rescued 10 civilians total, but they had retrieved every single civilian in the building. They had not left anyone behind. The second test began 2 days later after Taeyang and LT Unk and GT's burns had been treated. This test was different. It was a combat scenario. The teams would face an ambush while escorting a VIP through hostile territory. The Krell team went first. The Krello were massive, covered in natural armor like living tanks. Each warrior was worth 5 regular soldiers. In a fight, they were proud. They were confident. They had every reason to be. The ambush came from 3 directions. The Krello fought well. Their weapons fire was precise. Their formation held. But the enemy was numerous and well positioned. Within 10 minutes, 3 of the 8 Krello warriors were hit by simulated weapons fire. The computer marked them as casualties. The Krello team leader made a tactical assessment. They had lost 37% of their force. The mission success probability had dropped to 12%. Following standard Krello military doctrine, the leader ordered a withdrawal. The VIP would have to be sacrificed to save the remaining warriors. It was a sound tactical decision. Any military academy in the galaxy would approve. When the human team faced the same scenario, things went differently. Bora led this team herself. When the ambush came, she immediately positioned her team in a defensive formation around the VIP. Enemy fire was heavy. Within 5 minutes, 2 of her 8 guards were marked as casualties. Then a third went down, then a fourth. Bara's voice came sharp over the radio. Hold position, no one breaks. The remaining 4 humans held. They were outnumbered now 3-1. Every tactical computer in the observation room showed that they should retreat. But they did not retreat, they adjusted their positions. They covered each other. They kept the VIP protected. More fire came in. A 5th guard went down. Now it was 3 humans against 12 enemy. The probability of success was less than 2%. Sergeant Chin came the voice of the test controller. You can call the exercise. You have performed adequately. Negative, Bora replied. Exercise continues. She and her 2 remaining guards fought on. They used every bit of cover, every tactical trick. 1 guard provided suppressing fire while the other moved. They rotated positions. They made every shot count. 8 minutes later, the simulation ended. The human team had neutralized all enemy combatants. The VIP was safe. 5 of 8 guards were casualties, but the mission was complete. In the observation room, the council members watched in stunned silence. Veeler's antenna quivered. They should have withdrawn, he said. They should have saved themselves, but they did not, observed Counselor more quietly. The final test was simpler. Each guard would stand watch in a boring, empty corridor for 8 hours. Nothing would happen. It was just standing, watching, waiting. The Vex guards lasted 4 hours before they became distracted. They were small beings, easily bored. After 4 hours, they started talking to each other, playing games on their communicators. The insectoid guards lasted 6 hours before they rotated positions on their own initiative. They found standing still for so long to be physically painful. The human guard stood for the full 8 hours. Then they stood for another 8 hours. When their relief did not arrive on time, Dejo and Hana were among those tested. They stood at attention for 16 hours straight. No complaints, no questions. When their relief finally arrived, they simply saluted and walked away. After all tests were complete, Dr. Yuna presented her final analysis to the council. She stood before them with data pads full of statistics and biological readings. The tests confirm what we observed during the attack, she said. Other species are faster, stronger, better armed naturally, but humans have something unique. They have the ability to endure. She showed brain scans taken during the tests. When a human makes a commitment, it activates specific neural pathways. Breaking that commitment causes them genuine psychological pain. Not metaphorical pain, real measurable distress. They would rather face physical danger than emotional dishonor. This is a weakness. Veeler insisted they are slaves to abstract concepts, or said Ambassador Ren, the Avon delegate who had been watching quietly throughout all the tests. They are the only species we can truly trust when our lives are at stake. Bora was asked to explain human training one more time. She was direct and honest. We teach our guards 3 things, she said. First, fear is normal. Second, duty is more important than fear. Third, we never leave our people behind ever. These 3 things make up the core of human military culture. Even if staying means death, asked a counselor, especially if staying means Death Bora replied, because that is. When the choice matters most, anyone can. Stand guard when it is safe, we need. Guards who will stand when it is dangerous, that is what humans do, young. Taeyang was called to give his testimony. He stood before the council with bandages still on his arms. Why did you go back into the building when the floor was collapsing? Grand Counselor Thex asked. Taeyang thought carefully about his answer because there were three more inside. He said simply, I knew they were just mannequins, but in a real situation, they would have been real people. I wanted to prove to myself that I would not leave them, even when scared, even when hurt. That is what guards do. The council session ended. The representatives filed out slowly, speaking in hushed tones in their various languages. The humans had proven something important. The question was whether the council would accept what they had learned. Professor Sun Minhin arrived at the council chambers carrying a single data storage device. He was 70 years old with gray hair and gentle eyes. He had spent 40 years studying human military history, teaching at the finest universities across human space. Today he would teach the most important class of his life. The council chamber was full. Every representative was present. They had seen the tests, they had read the reports, but many still did not understand why humans behaved the way they did. Professor Sun Min was here to explain. Grand Counselor Thex gestured to the witness platform. Professor, you may begin. Sun Min inserted his data storage into the chamber's main computer. The large screens came to life. They showed an ancient battlefield. Human warriors in bronze armor stood in a narrow mountain pass. Before them stretched an army of thousands. This is Thermopylae, Sun Min said. His voice was calm like a teacher with students. It happened on Earth over 4,000 years ago. 300 warriors from the city of Sparta stood against an army of hundreds of thousands. They knew they could not win. They knew they would die, but they had been told to hold this pass, so they held it. The screens showed the battle. The Spartan warriors fought for 3 days. They killed thousands. In the end, all 300 died, but they delayed the enemy army long enough for their people to prepare defenses. They could have retreated. Sun Min continued. They could have lived, but they had given their word to hold the pass, so they stayed until the last man fell. He changed the image. Another battle, a small fort surrounded by an enormous army. The Alamo, he said. This happened about 500 years ago in a place called Texas. 189 defenders against several thousand attackers. They were offered chances to surrender. They refused. They fought until everyone inside was dead. When asked why they stayed, one defender said, because we said we would. More images, more battles. Each one showed the same pattern. Humans outnumbered. Humans facing certain death. Humans refusing to retreat. The siege of Jadotville, Sun Min said. 150 soldiers against 3,000 attackers. They held for 5 days with no supplies and no reinforcements. The chosen reservoir surrounded by 10 enemy divisions in freezing winter. They fought their way out but refused to leave their wounded behind. It took weeks and many died, but they brought everyone home. The council members watched in silence. Some appeared confused, some appeared disturbed. How could any species deliberately choose death over survival so many times? Sun Min paused. The Presentation. Every species here has warriors. Every species has tales of brave fighters, but human military history is different. It is filled with last stands, hopeless battles where retreat was possible but was not taken. This is not because humans are stupid or suicidal. It is because of how we think about promises. He brought up a new image. It was a document very old, written in an ancient human language. This is an oath, he explained. It is the words a human soldier spoke when joining the army. The oath says, I will defend my people with my life. I will not abandon my post. I will not fail in my duty. When a human speaks these words, something changes in their mind. The oath becomes part of who they are. Breaking it is like cutting off their own arm. Painful, unthinkable. Ambassador Ren spoke up. But surely, survival instinct is stronger than words. For most species, yes, Sanang men agreed, but humans have learned to make their promises stronger than their instincts. It is not easy. It requires training from childhood. It requires constant reinforcement, but once established, it is extremely powerful. He showed videos of human military training, young recruits running until they collapsed, getting up and running more, standing at attention for hours, learning to obey orders even when every muscle screamed to rest. This is not punishment. Sun Men said this is teaching the body that the mind is in control, that willpower is stronger than pain, that duty is more important than comfort. By the time a human becomes a guard, they have rewired their basic responses when they see danger. Yes, they feel fear, but their training tells them to move forward anyway. A counselor from the Silicon Union asked, what about self-preservation? Does this training remove it entirely? No. Sunman replied, humans still want to live. They still feel pain and fear, but they have created a hierarchy of values. At the bottom is comfort, above that is safety, above that is duty and honor, and at the very top is keeping their word. Human will sacrifice everything below to protect what is above. The screens changed again. This time they showed modern human military operations, rescue missions where soldiers went into extreme danger to retrieve fallen comrades, defensive positions held against overwhelming odds, evacuation operations where the guards were always the last ones out. Notice the pattern. Sun Men pointed out in every case. Humans refuse to leave their people behind, even when those people are already dead, even when retrieving bodies serves no tactical purpose. They do it because they promised. Because the oath says, I will not abandon my post or my people, and humans take that literally. He paused and looked around the chamber. I know this seems strange to you, irrational, but consider it from a different angle. If you were a counselor and guards were assigned to protect you, would you rather have guards who calculate odds and retreat when danger is high, or would you rather have guards who promise to protect you and will keep that promise even if it kills them? The chamber was very quiet. That was a question with an obvious answer, and everyone knew it. The next witness was Young Ho. He walked to the platform, slowly using a cane. His left leg was artificial from the knee down. He had lost it 6 years ago in a battle on a colony world. Tell the council what happened at Firebase Delta, Grand Counselor Thex requested. Young Ho stood straight despite the cane. I was a corporal then, he said. I commanded. 8 soldiers guarding a communication outpost. We received word that enemy forces were approaching, a lot of them. We were ordered to hold the position for 12 hours while civilians evacuated from nearby settlements. He paused, remembering the enemy arrived in force. We were 8 against maybe 200. They attacked in waves. We held them back, but casualties mounted. After 12 hours, I had 3 soldiers left. But you did not retreat, Dex asked. No. Young Ho confirmed. Because I had promised to hold the position for 12 hours. Not 12 hours unless things got too hard. 12 hours, period. So we stayed for how long? 72 hours. Total, Young Ho said, 3 days by the end. It was just me. The other soldiers had been hit. I dragged them into the bunker, kept fighting. My ammunition ran out. I used enemy weapons. Then those ran out. I used stones and metal bars. Whatever I could find. His voice stayed calm, factual. A piece of shrapnel cut through my leg on the 3rd day. I knew I was going to die, but I had said I would hold the position, so I held it. When relief forces finally arrived, I was unconscious from blood loss, but I was still at my post. A counselor asked the question many were thinking. Why the civilians were safe? You had permission to leave. Why stay? Young Ho thought about it. Because I promised, he said simply. I told those 8 soldiers to trust me, to follow my orders, that I would lead them well. 3 of them died following my orders. If I had run away after they died, what would that say about my leadership? Even though it cost you your leg, Young Ho looked down at his artificial limb. I would do it again, he said quietly. Those 8 soldiers trusted me. That trust is worth more than a leg. It is worth more than my life. That is what humans understand that other species do. Not trust is not just a nice idea. It is everything. He looked around the chamber. You are all here debating whether humans should guard this hall. You are asking if we are rational enough, if we calculate risks properly, if we understand tactics. You are asking the wrong questions. The question is simple. Can you trust us to keep our promises? And the answer is yes, always yes, even when it hurts, even when we die, we will keep our word. The chamber remained silent after Young Ho left. His words hung in the air like a weight. Ambassador Ren stood to speak. I have been skeptical of the humans, she admitted. My species values intelligence and calculation. The human approach seemed foolish to me, but I have been thinking about trust. She gestured to the screens that still showed images of human last stands. My guards are very skilled. They are well trained. But if an attack came, I now realize I cannot be certain they would stay. They would calculate the odds. If the odds were bad, they would retreat. This is rational, but it also means I cannot fully trust my life to them. She looked at the human section of the chamber where Dejo, Hana, and other guards stood at attention. But these humans, I now believe they would stay. Not because they are stupid, not because they cannot calculate risk, but because they promised, and that promise is stronger than their fear. That is not a weakness. That is the most valuable trait a guard can have. Grand Counselor Thex shifted his massive silicon form. The council will deliberate on what we have learned. We will reconvene tomorrow for a final decision. As the chamber emptied, Professor Sunung Min gathered his materials. A young counselor approached him curious. Professor, do All humans think this way, the counselor asked. Sun Heung-min smiled. No, not all. Humans become guards or soldiers, but all human cultures teach the value of keeping promises. We teach our children that your word is your bond, that honor matters, that some things are worth sacrifice. Not every human lives by these values, but the culture reinforces them constantly. So when we need people who will stand no matter what, we have a large population to choose from. Counselor nodded slowly, beginning to understand. The humans were not a species of warriors. They were a species that valued promises so highly that they would die rather than break them, and that made all the difference. Miss Anne checked her equipment. For the 5th time, her hands were shaking slightly. This was her first real posting as a council guard. She had graduated from training only 3 weeks ago. Everything was new. Everything was frightening. Stop checking, Du Yun said gently. The older guard stood beside her at the northern entrance. He had been a council guard for 8 years. His uniform displayed medals from 3 combat situations. Your equipment is fine. You checked it 4 times already. Sorry, Miss Anne said. I am just nervous. That is normal, Du Yun replied. I was terrified my first day, threw up twice before my shift started. Miss Anne looked at him in surprise. Really, really, he confirmed with a small smile. Being nervous does not mean you are weak. It means you understand the responsibility. That is good. The guards who are not nervous are the ones who worry me. Inside the council chamber, the debate continued. 3 days of testimony, 3 days of tests and analysis. Today was the final session. Grand Counselor Theeks would announce the decision about council security. Miss Anne tried to focus on her duty. Watch the corridor. Notice anything unusual. Stay alert. But her mind kept wandering. What if she made a mistake? What if she failed? What if me? Sun, Du Yun and LT Uncle GT's voice cut through her thoughts. Breathe. You are spiraling. Focus on now, this moment, this corridor. Everything else can wait. She took a deep breath. Du Yun was right. One moment at a time. In the ventilation shafts above them, something moved in the darkness. Scar watched through advanced sensors he had learned from the failure of the first attack. That attack had been too direct, too simple. The humans had been able to respond because the attackers had been predictable. This attack would be different, better planned, better equipped, and most importantly, it would target the humans first. Scar had brought 30 fighters this time, not 6. They had EMP weapons to disable technology, sonic disruptors to disorient opponents, and they had studied the humans carefully. They knew the humans would not retreat, so the plan was to eliminate them immediately before they could organize a defense. The signal came. Scar's team moved. The EMP pulse hit without warning. Every electronic device in the northern section went dead. Lights, communications, weapons all gone in an instant. Miss Anne's weapon died in her hands. The lights went out. Emergency backup lights flickered on, but they were dim and red. Du Yun was already moving, pulling her behind a support pillar. EMP, he said. Quickly switch to backup. Miss Anne's training kicked in. Backup weapon. Mechanical, no electronics. She drew it. With shaking hands around them, she could hear sounds of fighting from other parts of the hall. Screams, weapons, fire. From the few guns that still worked, 20 attackers came through the northern entrance, they moved in a coordinated formation, weapons ready. Du Yun stepped out to meet them. Get to the counselors, he ordered. Miss Anne, protect them, but you, that is an order. Miss Anne ran behind her. Du Yun opened fire. She heard his weapon, heard him shouting to draw the attacker and LT Unk and GT's attention, heard the return fire and very one under Lee Town. Then she heard Dune fall. She stopped. Every instinct told her to go back, help him, but he had ordered her to protect the counselors. What should she do? Inside the main chamber, chaos erupted. Attackers poured in from multiple entrances. Daejo and Hana were at the eastern side, cut off from the main counselor group by the attacking forces. They fought to reach them but were pinned down. Captain Jun was in the observation gallery. His weapon had been disabled by the EMP. He grabbed a metal rod from a broken railing and jumped down to the main floor. He might not have a working gun, but he still had his training and his fists. The counselors were panicking. Many tried to flee to the emergency exits, but the attackers had blocked those routes. They were herded into the center of the chamber, trapped. Miss Anne reached the chamber entrance. She could see the counselors surrounded. She could see Daejo and Hana fighting desperately to reach them. She could see attackers everywhere. There were 3 guards closer to the counselors than her, but they were not moving. They had taken cover behind pillars and were waiting for what? For backup. For better odds, Miss Anne was just one person, one young, inexperienced guard. What could she do against 30 attackers? She remembered Down Yun's training. She remembered his words from a 100 practice sessions. Being brave does not mean you are not scared, it means you do it. Anyway, she stepped into the chamber and started firing. Her shots were careful, precise. She had trained for this. She aimed for weapons, not bodies. Disarm. Do not kill unless necessary. Attackers were surprised. They had not expected an attack from that direction. 2 attackers turned toward her. She kept firing, kept moving. More attackers noticed her. 5, then 10. They were moving toward her now, leaving the counselors less surrounded. Good. She thought, come at me, give the counselors space to move. Energy blasts hit the pillar she hid behind. Stone exploded. Fragments cut her face. She ignored the pain and kept firing. Daejo saw what was happening. The young guard had drawn off a significant number of attackers. She had created an opening. He signaled to Hana. They moved together, finally reaching the counselors. Everyone down, Daejo shouted. The counselors dropped to the floor. Daejo and Hana positioned themselves as a living shield between the counselors and the attackers. Captain Jun was fighting hand to hand with 3 attackers. He had broken one's arm with his metal rod, dislocated another's shoulder, but the third one was getting behind him. A blade flashed. Bora appeared from nowhere. She had been in the armory when the attack started. No EMP there. She had a working weapon, and she knew how to use it. Her shot took down the attacker behind June. About time, June grunted, swinging his rod at another attacker. You are welcome, Bora replied, firing steadily. Misun's weapon clicked empty. No more ammunition. She had no backup magazine. She looked around desperately. Attackers were closing in on her position. 8 of them, maybe 10. She could run. The emergency exit was close. She could escape, live to fight another day, but if she ran, the attackers would Go back to targeting the counselors, and down had fallen. Protecting her, if she ran now his sacrifice meant nothing. She picked up a piece of broken stone. It was not a good weapon, but it was something. The attackers came around the pillar. They saw her standing there, one young woman, with a rock facing 10 armed fighters. One of them laughed. You should run. Little human, Misun's voice was steady. No, they raised their weapons. She closed her eyes, expecting death. The reinforcements arrived with a thunderous crash. Heavy security forces smashed through the blocked emergency exits. 50 armed guards poured into the chamber. The battle turned instantly. The attackers tried to flee but were surrounded. Within minutes, all 30 were either unconscious or restrained. Misan opened her eyes. She was still alive. She was wounded, bleeding from a dozen cuts, but alive. She ran back to the northern entrance. Du Yun was there, lying against the wall. His chest had a blast mark. Medics were already working on him. Duan, she cried. His eyes opened slightly. Safe, all safe, he smiled. Good, you did good, Misan. Then his eyes closed again as the medics put him under for emergency treatment. The aftermath was chaotic. Wounded being treated, attackers being taken away, counselors being escorted to safe locations. Through it all, Dezhou and Hana remained at their posts by the eastern entrance. Their shift was not over yet. Grand Counselor Thex emerged from his secure location. He looked at the destroyed chamber, at the human guard still standing watch, despite being wounded and exhausted, at young man sitting on the floor covered in blood and stone dust, refusing medical treatment until the counselors were all confirmed safe. The council reconvened 2 days later. Du Yun was in medical care, but would survive. Misan had received treatment for her injuries. All the other human guards had returned to duty immediately after being cleared by doctors. Thex called the session to order. His voice was solemn. We have seen enough, he said. The humans have proven their point beyond any doubt. When the second attack came, when our most sophisticated security systems failed, when technology died and chaos reigned, who stood, who fought, who protected us? He gestured to the human guards standing at attention around the chamber. Not the Jai, despite their superior reflexes, not the Krell, despite their armor and strength, not the Vex or the insectoids or any of the other species, only the humans, a few young women and men who had made a promise and refused to break it. Veeler stood. He looked different now, humbled. I was wrong, he said quietly. I called the humans defective. I said their loyalty was irrational. I was wrong. Their loyalty is the most valuable thing we could ask for. Grand Counselor Thex nodded. The council has made its decision, effective immediately. All council hall security details will be composed exclusively of human personnel. Other species may guard their own embassies, their own ships, their own worlds, but here, where all our lives gather in one place, we trust only those who have proven they will stand. When all reason says to run, he paused. We trust the humans. The decision was unanimous, not a single vote against. Outside the chamber, workers began installing a new plaque. It was written in 847 languages, but the original text was in human English. It said simply, "The guard stands." Below it, the new oath for council guards was inscribed. I promise to protect the counselors with my life. I will not abandon my post. I will not leave the fallen, I will stand. When others flee, this is my oath, and I will keep it until death. Miss Anne read the plaque as she stood at her new permanent posting. Du Yun stood beside her, still recovering, but insisting on light duty. He smiled at her. How do you feel? He asked, scared. She admitted, what if another attack comes? Then we stand, Du Yun said. Simply, just like we did before, just like we will always do. That is what humans do. Across the galaxy, the news spread. The Galactic Council had made humans the sole protectors of the council halls, not because humans were the strongest, not because they were the fastest or the smartest, but because when humans made a promise, they kept it, no matter the cost, no matter the odds. And in a galaxy of countless species, each with their own strengths and abilities, that quality was the rarest and most valuable of all. Dade stood at his post and thought about his brother Jung, about the choice his brother had made so many years ago to protect him, about the chain of choices that had led to this moment. Being a guard was not about being fearless. It was about being afraid and standing. Anyway, it was about making a promise and keeping it when breaking it would be easier. It was about being human. Council was in session. The debates would continue for hours, and through it all the human guards would stand watch. Silent, vigilant, unbreakable, because they had given their word, and that was enough.